Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris, and welcome to this week's Thoughtful Thursday. A huge thanks to everyone listening right now, especially those of you who tune in every week. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Hacking Your Leadership and leave us a review on iTunes. Also, if you haven't listened to my interview with Elizabeth Boyd that published yesterday, you should check it out. After just one day, we've gotten a ton of positive feedback from people who've really found value in it. All right, for this week's episode, I want to talk about credibility and courage. Most of the ways we tend to grade a person's leadership abilities are subjective. We talk to their people, we look at turnover, we use engagement surveys and exit interviews. None of those alone will ever paint a complete picture of a leader's abilities. But one of the almost universal ways of objectively grading someone's leadership is looking at how many people have been promoted from under them. When a leader is able to help one of their direct reports get promoted, especially if that promotion means changing teams and no longer reporting to that leader, it's at the very least a sign that the leader cares more about their employees' growth and development than they do about keeping their employees on their team. We know it isn't a good idea to stand in the way of an employee's upward movement, but that doesn't prevent some leaders from falling into this trap every day. When a leader doesn't have a strong talent bench and they don't spend enough time on succession planning, they eventually find themselves in a position where one or two specific employees leaving could seriously hurt business outcomes. So while it's probably pretty rare that a leader would maliciously hold an employee back, I think it's still fairly common for employees to fall prey to this simply because they've made themselves too valuable to their team. But these circumstances aren't the ones I want to talk about today. If what I just said gives you a guilty conscience, you know what you need to do, and you know the potential consequences if you don't. There's nothing I can say you don't already know. What I want to talk about is a leader's responsibility in making sure they are able to get their people promoted when the time is right and the employee is prepared. This assumes completely positive intent. We're starting with the assumption that you, as the leader, truly want to see your employees grow, even if that means potentially losing them. I honestly believe most leaders meet this criteria, but some of these leaders stand in the way of their people's growth unintentionally. They stand in the way due to their own performance and their own lack of credibility and courage. Last month, Lorenzo and I went over our 5 P's of effective leadership. On the 5th and final episode of that series, we discussed the importance of performance, simply delivering, achieving the financial or performance goals set by your organization consistently and ethically. We discussed how results equal credibility, and how your opinion doesn't really matter much, even if it's correct, when you don't have the credibility of performance to back up your statements. This credibility matters just as much when advocating for your employees as it does when you're advocating for yourself or your proposed strategy on any topic. Just like your boss is unlikely to take your suggestions seriously if you can't manage to deliver results, your boss is also less likely to listen to you talk about the top performing employees you have and how they should be considered for bigger roles. You could have the best intentions, the biggest heart, the ability to give and receive feedback, and many other fantastic qualities of a great leader. If you can't leverage any of that to your advantage or to the advantage of your people, it probably means you don't have a great track record of delivering results. And this makes perfect sense too. If you and your employees are so great, why isn't your team able to meet assigned goals? But even if you have a track record of delivering results and the credibility to advocate for your people getting bigger roles, that advocacy needs to be active, not passive. You aren't supposed to sit back and wait for someone to ask you if you know of anyone who's a fit for a bigger role and more responsibility. You're supposed to leverage the credibility you've built and the relationships you have to get those employees in the room with the right people. You need to have the courage to speak about your top performing employees when you find yourself in situations that call for it. The right role at the right time might still be 6 months or a year away. It doesn't matter. What matters is the slow, deliberate networking that will eventually lead to the right place, right time, right role intersection you're looking for. In all the time I've spent consulting with leaders across North America, when comparing the career paths of high-performing individuals and what determines whether they get promoted, I found the credibility and the courage of their direct leader has made all the difference. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on Monday.